Christ of the Covenants Session 54诸约中的基督第54讲 Page 221第221页。我们继续讲 The Covenant of the Kingdom 大卫的约就是天国的约，圣约神学跟时代论不同的看法。If it is insisted that Christ's throne today actually is in heaven rather than Palestine, two considerations must be kept in mind. 假如有人坚持说今天基督的宝座具体上是在天上而不在巴勒斯坦，这样坚持的话呢，我们必须要记得有两方面是必须考虑的。First of all， 第一方面 David's regal power was not derived from the situation of his throne in a topographical area called Palestine. 大卫之所以有做王的能力，不是在于他的宝座在一个地理上的区域叫做巴勒斯坦，不是从这方面来考虑的。David drew his authority from the interconnection of his throne with the heavenly throne of God. 大卫作王的权柄是因为他的宝座与上帝在天上的宝座之间的连结。His locality in Jerusalem. 大卫的地点是在耶路撒冷，这个事实 simply represented the earthly embodiment of the heavenly rule. 只不过是表达出天上作王的统治在地上的体现。Secondly， 第二方面必须考虑的 Christ's present reign at the right hand of the Father does not limit in any respect his involvement in the land of Palestine or in any other material topographical area of the world. 基督坐在父神右边，现在在做王，一点都没有限制他在巴勒斯坦或者地球任何一个地方的介入。As the resurrected Christ clearly indicated to his disciples, 正如复活的基督清清楚楚向他的门徒们指出 All power has been given to him in heaven and in earth. 天上地上一切的权都已经赋予给他的。His present reign cannot be spiritualized into a heavenly realm that does not touch earthly material borders. 目前他在天上所做王的这个统治，不能把它属灵化，作为是在天上一个范围，是与地上物质上的疆界的地域没有关系的，不是如此的。To the contrary， 反过来说 ，His heavenly reign manifests itself in earthly concreteness. 耶稣今天在天上做王的统治，很具体的在地上彰显到 Christ's throne literally fulfills the promises made to David. 耶稣基督的宝座字义上是实现了上帝对大卫的应许的， while at the same time stretching beyond the proportions which David himself experienced. 但是与此同时呢，是完全超过大卫他亲自所经验的那个尺寸、那个范围的 in a manner appropriate to the consummative character of the new covenant when compared to the shadowy form of the oath. 这样子的超越是很恰当的，因为新的约若与旧的约的影子的形式比较，新的约是最后的、最伟大的。那么6第6段 The new covenant 新的约 The covenant of consummation 最后的终结的约。原著的222到227页。 The great divide in the history of redemption for covenant theologians distinguishes the Old Covenant with its prophecies and shadows from the New Covenant with its fulfillments and realities. 从圣约神学的角度来看，救赎历史的伟大的分水线就做这个区分。旧约和旧约一切的预言和影子，另外一边是新约和它所有的现实 realities 和 fulfillment 和它的应验和实现。Each of the successive covenants made 上帝一次再次所立的约 with Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses and David 就是上帝与亚当、与挪亚、与亚伯拉罕、与摩西和大卫一次一次所立的约 finds its fulfillment in the new covenant 每一个约都在新约里实现了成全了。The Lord's Supper represents the point of formal inauguration of this new covenant. 这个新的约的设立，我们可以说以耶稣基督设立圣餐为具体的一点，具体的一刻。At this consecrative meal, Christ officially institutes the new age. 在这个分别为圣的最后的晚餐，耶稣基督正式的设立了新的时代了。Indeed, the provisions of the new covenant shall receive a fuller realization in age to come. 不错，新约所要赐予人们的，在未来的将来的时代会有更完整的实现。At present, the believer lives in a tension. 目前新约信徒们活在一个张力状态中 between the promises of God as already having been fulfilled. 这张力指一方面有着上帝已经实现的应许 and the same promises as having yet a richer realization. 张力另外一边就是同样的一些的应许，还有将来更丰富的实现。信徒是活在这两方面的张力中。But it is true nonetheless that the end of the ages now has arrived. 可是有一件不变的事实就是，末世就是诸世代的末日是已经到达了，已经临到了。我这里自己多加一节的经文，是书里面没有的。哥林多前书第10章11节，他们遭遇这些事，都要作为鉴戒，并且写在经上，正是警戒我们这末世的人。这个我们这末世的人原文是 upon us, upon whom the end of the ages have come. 我们就是诸世代的结束临到的我们已经活在这个 end of the ages 所有世代的末了了。The tension inherent in the twofold manner of structuring history within dispensationalism manifests itself once more when its description of the new covenant is compared with its description of the dispensation of grace. 时代论呢，他们是要区分出新的约、新约，时代论会描述新约。另外一方面，时代论要描述恩典的时代。在这两方面的描述，再一次的表达出时代论里面本身的一种的张力，就是他们用两个不同的方法来为历史建立结构的。新的约，恩典时期。The dispensation of grace, 恩典时代 stands out quite distinctly as an epoch with a concrete beginning and ending. 恩典时代 很突出的显现的。这个时代是有具体的开始，有具体的结束的。It begins with the rejection of Christ by the Jewish nation。恩典的时代的开始，就是当犹太国拒绝基督的时候 ，and ends with the establishment of the millennial kingdom。恩典时代的结束，就是上帝设立千禧年的国度。这个是恩典时代。But the new covenant， 但是新的约呢 ，as treated by dispensationalism， 就是时代论怎么讨论新的约呢 ，has the peculiar characteristic of embracing both the church age of the present time and the distinctively Jewish millennial kingdom of the future。新的约很特别的是包含着现今的教会时期和将来的独特的是犹太人的千禧年的国度，包含这两个时期的。The New Covenant, according to the New Schofield Bible， 根据新的斯可夫圣经来说，新约 the New Covenant secures the personal revelation of the Lord to every believer that is in the church age。新的约呢，就在教会的时代，为每一个信徒保证着主亲自的显现。At the same time， 但是与此同时 ，it secures the perpetuity, future conversion and blessing of a repentant Israel, with whom the new covenant will yet be ratified。可是这个新的约呢，也确保着有一个要悔改的以色列，永久性的将来的悔改归回，而上帝将来仍然还要与以色列通过设立新的约的。所以这个新的约呢，有现今的教会时代上帝向每一个基督的信徒是真的是显现的。但是将来呢，以色列要悔改，他们有永久性的要归回到上帝，上帝要跟他们设立新的约的。下面是作者的批判。It is difficult to justify such a neat distinction of application within the provisions of the new covenant。 我们很难找到理由来支持这种的在新的约里面的内容这样子的区分出两种不同的应用。The writer to the Hebrews, when applying new covenant terminology to the circumstances of the present age， 希伯来书的作者当他用新的约的词汇来讲现今时代的现况的时候 does not eliminate the distinctions house of Israel and house of Judah from his quotation of Jeremiah's prophecy。 希伯来书的作者没有在引用耶利米的预言的时候，没有排除以色列之家、犹大之家这些的名称的。Refer to Hebrews 8:8， 参考希伯来书第8章第8节。希伯来书第8章第8节。所以主指责他的百姓说，日子将到，我要与以色列家和犹大家另立新约。 According to the inspired author， 根据这位圣灵所默示的希伯来书的作者，根据他 The Holy Spirit witnesses to us who live today on the basis of our involvement in the new covenant。 圣灵是因为我们在新约里面有份，所以圣灵向我们这些今天活着的人做见证的。 Hebrews 10:15 and following， 希伯来书第10章从第15节开始，圣灵也对我们做见证，因为他既已说过， 主说那些日子以后，我与他们所立的约乃是这样，我要将我的律法写在他们心上，又要放在他们的里面。以后就说，我不再纪念他们的罪愆和他们的过犯，这些罪过既已赦免，就不用再为罪献祭了。The Old Schofield Bible is particularly problematic in its formulation regarding the dispensation of grace. 老旧的斯可夫圣经在论到恩典的时代的时候，他的说法是特别带来问题的。Possibly for this reason, 可能是因为这个缘故吧。The description of this era receives a rather extensive revision in the New Schofield Bible. 所以在新的版本的斯可夫圣经呢，对恩典时期的描述就有大幅度的修改。However, it is important to be aware of the original formulation of this epoch as found in the Old Schofield Bible. 可是呢，很重要的一件事是我们要知道，在老旧的史可夫圣经里面是怎么样描述恩典时代的。The description in the Old Schofield Bible concerning the dispensation of grace declares, 老旧的史可夫是这样子宣告描述恩典时代的。The point of testing is no longer legal obedience as condition of salvation. 现在考验的那一点不再是顺服律法作为得救的条件， but acceptance or rejection of Christ. 现在考验的是在于接受还是拒绝基督 with good works as a fruit of salvation. 而好行为是得救的所结出的果子。下面是我们的作者的批判。But when, at any time in the history of redemption, has the point of testing been legal obedience as the condition of salvation? 可是在救赎历史哪一个时期哪一刻，上帝考验人是用是否遵行律法作为得救的条件的？ Never has there been a time since the fall of man into sin in which God proposed legal obedience as the way of salvation. 自从人类堕落进到最终之后，从来没有一个时候上帝用顺服律法作为得救的条件的。Always, the acceptance or rejection of Christ by faith alone has been a way of man's deliverance. 不论什么时代，人得救的道路都是在于他接受还是不接受，唯独借着信心接受耶稣基督还是拒绝他，唯有这个是得救之路。In discussing the dispensation of the church, which corresponds to the old Schofield Bible's dispensation of grace. 那新的斯可夫圣经呢，讨论到教会时代，这个是相等于旧的斯可夫圣经的恩典时期。The New Schofield Bible omits any statement which suggests that salvation at one time was dependent on perfect obedience by sinful men. 新的斯可夫圣经呢，就不再提到，不再暗示，在任何时期，罪人得救是在于他是否完全的顺服上帝的律法的。Instead, 反过来说 the emphasis lies on the distinctive role of the church in this particular period. 现在新的斯可夫圣经所强调的是在目前这个时代，教会扮演一个独特的角色的。According to the New Schofield Bible, 根据新的斯可夫圣经 the church is to be clearly distinguished from both Jews and Gentiles as such. 教会要很清楚的区别，不是犹太人 也不是外邦人 although drawing its constituency from both. 虽然教会的成员来自犹太人也来自外邦人 This careful separation of Jew and Gentile as such from the church 时代论这么清楚的谨慎的把教会与犹太人跟外邦人都区分出来 provides the basis in dispensationalism for the postponement of the Jewish Messianic kingdom until the end of the present age. 这个提供一个基础，让时代论呢，把犹太人的弥赛亚国度延迟到现今世代的结束之后。The rejection of Christ by the Jewish leadership. 犹太人的领袖们拒绝耶稣基督 marks the point at which the kingdom promised to the Jews was postponed. 就是上帝应许给犹太人的国度延迟的那一刻。A new day began from the dispensational perspective with this postponement of the kingdom. 国度这样的延迟，从时代论的角度来说，延迟的时候，一个新的时代开始了。The present era, called the dispensation of grace or the dispensation of the church. 目前的时代不论称为恩典时期或者教会时期 shall continue until the coming millennial age. 会持续下去，一直到将来要来的千禧年的时代。下面我们的作者回应 No quarrel may be entered against the suggestion that a distinctive epoch runs from the time of the Jewish rejection of Christ to the time of his second coming. 没有人会提出异议反对说从犹太人拒绝基督到他第二次再来之间是有着一个独特的时代的。But there is a vast distinction between understanding Christ as postponing his kingdom due to the Jewish rejection of his offer to them. 但是有两件事情是完全不一样。耶稣基督因为犹太人拒绝他的邀请，耶稣基督延迟他的国度，这样的理解是一码事。And Christ is establishing his kingdom even in his suffering at the hands of the Jews. 可是耶稣基督就算在犹太人的手下受苦，也在设立了他的国度，是另外一码事。Jesus never merely offered to the Jews the possibility that he should become king among them. 耶稣基督从来不仅仅向犹太人提出一个有可能性他会在他们中间做王的，不是这样的。Instead, he declared that he was a matter of fact king among the Jews. 耶稣基督所宣告的是，事实上他就是犹太人的王。It was not that Israel rejected an offer on the part of Jesus that he become their king. 事实不是说以色列人拒绝耶稣提议耶稣成为他们的王。It was that the Jews rejected their king. 事实是犹太人就拒绝了他们的王。我们下次继续来讲这段时代论跟新约神学如何了解新约时期。